Hi, guys. This week we are going to start learning more about civil rights. This week we are going to find the main idea of an article. Today, Monday, the only thing that we have to do is read the article. So I'm going to go through and read the article with you in case there are any words that are hard for you or that you don't understand. So, in the first paragraph, it starts off, what do Ruby Bridges, Barbara Johns, and the Little Rock Nine have in common? They were young African American children and youth who played an important role in the civil rights movement. When people think of the civil rights movement, they usually think of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. Few people realize that children also helped prepare the way for these great leaders. Barbara Johns was a 16-year-old junior at Morton High School in Farmville, Virginia in 1951. Barbara had been upset by the unfair conditions at her school, compared to the whites-only school in the same town. Her high school had no cafeteria, no science equipment, and the buses were in poor condition. As if conditions were not bad enough, the school was overcrowded. The county government kept making promises to fix the school. However, instead of keeping their promises, they built tar paper shacks to serve as temporary classrooms. The tar paper shacks were difficult to keep warm in the winter. They leaked when it rained. It looked like the promise of the new school wasn't going to happen. Barbara began to share with her teacher the frustrations she felt about the school's conditions. Her teacher responded to her with a question. Why don't you do something about it? This question burned deep down into Barbara. For months, she kept thinking about the answer to that question. Finally, several months later, Barbara had the answer. Paragraph 3. One particular day in school, students knew something unusual was happening. An assembly that was not on the regular schedule was announced. Barbara and some friends had sent a phony telephone call to the principal. They tricked the principal into leaving the school. His absence allowed Barbara to deliver a speech to her classmates. She talked about the unequal conditions between the African American schools and the white schools. She encouraged them to join her on a march to the courthouse, and surprisingly, everyone agreed. The event got the attention of the NAACP. The NAACP was an organization that fought for African Americans' rights. By Barbara Johns courageously holding an assembly, she helped to bring attention to the civil rights movement. Barbara Johns and her classmates were not the only young people to stand up for equality in education. In 1957, a group of 9 African American students, known today as the Little Rock Nine, also joined the cause. The 9 African American youth attempted to attend the all white school in Little Rock, Arkansas on September 4th, 1957. The governor of the state sent armed guards to keep the students out. The President of the United States was told of the state's refusal to desegregate. He ordered them to allow the Little Rock Nine to attend the school. Despite the danger, 19 days later, these brave students were escorted into the school and helped to eliminate segregation. Another brave young person that contributed to the civil rights movement was a 6-year-old girl named Ruby Bridges. Ruby was the first African American in New Orleans, Louisiana, to attend an all white school in 1960. It is hard to imagine what it must have been like for a 6-year-old to attend a school as the only black child. When the day came, Ruby saw a huge crowd that had gathered outside her school. At the time, she didn't realize they were there because of her. The crowd was throwing things and shouting. Despite the frightening situation, Ruby walked into the school bravely. The seriousness of her safety was so great that the 4 federal marshals escorted Ruby that day. The first day she attended the all-white school, she was in a classroom with the only white teacher who was willing to teach her. The white parents kept their children home that day from school, and most of them continued to do this for the entire year. Ruby continued to show up each day to school, escorted by federal marshals. The event was difficult for Ruby and her family. However, they persevered, and eventually the white people began to send their children back to school. And that is all for today.